Namaskar and welcome to DD Dialogue, where we are going to talk about the success story scripted by the Aspirational District program launched by our Honorable Prime Minister way back in 2018. And now it's certainly moved from strength to strength. Why we are saying this? Because it's playing a very, very significant role, viewers, when it comes to realizing or achieving the dream, the vision of New India Vision 2022. And these are the aspirational districts that have been identified, around 112 of them at least, which are underdeveloped, so to say, when it comes to different socio-economic indicators. But then they are going to play a very, very important role by involving this vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Vikas. Again, the vision of our Prime Minister, but there's a lot of hard work, viewers, that goes in making of it, and it is actually cutting ice with the people, because at the end of the day, it's the people of the country who matter the most. And yes, this show is special because we have in our Delhi studio Amitabh Kant, CEO Niti Aayog, joining us.
Thank you.
And we have in our Delhi studio also joining us Amit Kapoor, Chairman, Institute for Competitiveness. And this special episode is all the more special, viewers, because we've got our special district collectors joining from Golpara and joining from Kupwara in Jammu and Kashmir. Before I introduce them, let me also introduce our special panelists from Boston and London. I'm going to quickly welcome Professor Scott Stern from MIT, Stanford University. Professor Scott, thank you. Swagat hai, that's how we say in Hindi. Welcome to National Broadcaster. And also, let me quickly thank Michael Green, Social Progressive Imperative US-based think tank. From there, Michael Green is joining us from London. Michael Green, thank you. Thank you so much. Anshul Garg and Varnali Dekha, DC Golpara, joining us from her home, from her district rather. From her office, in fact, she's joining us. And Anshul Garg, DC Kupwara, joining us on DD Dialogue. Anshul, thank you so much for taking out time for DD Dialogue. Thank you. And I'm going to quickly, in fact, start with Amitabh Kant. Honest assessment of the distance covered so far. And I want to ask you, sir, why the basic idea of having this AD program, which is very popular now, it has infused a sense of competitiveness amongst various districts, but nowhere in your vision statement or in the papers it's mentioned backward areas.
Yeah. So, these are the most backward districts of India.
But you don't call them backward.
Yeah. So, these are very, very geographically flung off. They are very complex. They are very, very difficult districts. And if you look at the parameters, 49 indicators that we selected, these were performing very badly in health outcomes, in nutrition, in learning outcomes, agriculture productivity, all of them, and the infrastructure was extremely poor. So on a range of indices that we selected, these were the most backward districts of India. But when we started the program, the Prime Minister was very clear that we should not call them backward. We should call them the aspirational districts of India. And on these 49 indicators that we selected, he said, let us make them compete. Let us handhold them. Let us support them. But let us make them compete on a regular basis. Because the challenge was that not that they were not getting resources, but the level of morale was very low. And we had to bring that morale up. Make them aspire to be the best. So if they were here, we said, if they were at 40%, we said the best performing district in their state was at 80%, the best performing district in India may be at 100%. And we said in 2.5 years' time, we must make them the best performing district in their state, and another 5 years, at the end of 5 years, they must become the best performing district of India through sheer hand-holding, through raising their morale and ensuring that all the posts are filled up, and through sheer competition. And many of the young collectors, and you have 2 young collectors in the program.
We're going to go live to them. Yes.
They have done spectacular work, by just joining, the centers joined hands, the states have joined hands, the districts
So,
have joined
this
hands.
concept of collaboration and convergences when it
And
comes
competition.
to competition, especially when I say collaboration, convergences, let me quickly go across to Kupwara and also to Varnali in Golpara. And before we go to our overseas guests and also coming to you, Amit. Varnali, I'm coming to you. This whole concept of collaboration, convergences, I'm talking about the state center. Sir talked about the competitiveness. That's all that is good. But then it seems you and your team, you have completely changed the face of Golpara. The very backwardness of it makes it extremely difficult. But as we speak to you, we are also beaming those visuals of the spectacular work done by your team there, Varnali. What are your thoughts on the way this project has actually moved? And especially now, no more Golpara is recognized as one of the backward areas of Assam. What did you actually do?
Many of the 49 KPIs under the Aspirational District program have been such as to encourage convergence of departments and collaboration across stakeholders. Most of our initiatives have cut across departmental lines, and they have been an example of convergence which has led to Jan Andolan in the district. So one initiative that I would really like to mention is regarding Poshan clubs. We have launched Poshan clubs across all the schools of the district with very encouraging results. And these Poshan clubs are a massive exercise of convergence of the inputs of the various departments. For example, every time a girl child is born, the concerned NHM unit informs the CRCC, who arranges for the club members to visit the house and plant fruit-bearing trees. Likewise, all the various departments of the district, they have their field officers which are linked up to schools, and the school children are an extension of the various schemes of the governmental departments. For example, we have Swachhata monitors. These children act as Swachhata monitors under the Public Health Department. We have the Smart Papa campaign under the Social Welfare Department. We also have a concept of mentoring across these Poshan clubs by the departmental officials and officers and various youth icon. Another example that comes to mind is Mission Vidya Shakti, wherein we have made an entire block of illiterate women literate through the convergence of efforts of various departments. So convergence has been key in addition to a number of innovative ideas, and of course the most important point in this whole exercise has been the amount of hand-holding that we have received from Niti Aayog in terms of technical support.
So a lot of hand-holding from center. Yes, Varnali, stay with us. Anshul, hand-holding, that point plus, because you have also, in fact, you and your team, you've done so much work there in Kupwara, considering its proximity to the LOC. Electricity has been a massive challenge there. Not only electricity, I have traveled to Kupwara so many times. I come from the same state. The backwardness and lack of infrastructure. And today it seems that Kupwara no more is looked at as a backward, one of the backward districts of South Kashmir. But then the people are very hopeful, especially the farmers there. All that, Anshul, hand-holding was very important. Do you think that was lacking earlier? Hand-holding from center.
Yeah, absolutely right. As the CEO correctly mentioned, the whole spirit of the aspiration program was to turn these so-called backward districts into the front-running districts. And similar is the case with Kupwara. As you rightly mentioned, we are sitting right on the LOC, and we have around 1 million total population. Out of them, 10% are at a stone's throw from the LOC. So we also face some critical challenges, especially in healthcare, especially in the availability of power in the border areas, and obviously improving the livelihoods of the farmers, because we have around 100,000 farming families in the district who rely largely on agriculture and horticulture. So the hand-holding from Niti Aayog helped us in formulating a holistic plan for development. We were also supplemented with additional grants from Niti Aayog under the challenge method, dovetailed with the grants that we have available at the UT level here in J&K. We could formulate a holistic planning obviously in convergence with a lot of Panchayati Raj institutions, the civil society here, a lot of NGOs, where we could converge our resources and focus on all the 49 indicators that have been spread across the 5 major themes. And the progress is being regularly monitored, and the dashboard which the Aspirational Districts program offers us to review our performance on a monthly, a quarterly or an yearly basis. so that we can see where we are lying at the current situation and where do we need to go from there, and then formulate our planning strategy accordingly.
So, you talked about monitoring. I would want to bring that point to CEO and Amit. But Amit, before that, let me quickly get in our overseas guests. I'm going to come to Professor Scott Stern. Professor Scott Stern, you've done so much of work when it comes to economic innovation, entrepreneurship, policy management, etc. Lessons that the other developed part of the world that can really learn from India. What is your assessment? You think such models can be replicated abroad also? We, especially the way we conduct our elections here, the world has taken lessons from us. But when it comes to this particular policy program, aspirational districts, as a management scholar, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it is actually a very out-of-the-box idea that has come from the Team India?
Yes, so let me congratulate the entire team on their extraordinary work. I think the key insight of this program was to move beyond simply a focus on improving high-level economic performance, GDP per capita, to focus on broader and inclusive social progress for all the citizens of these aspirational districts. By targeting specific measures that reflect the lived lives of individuals, and then enabling each of the districts to have resources and engagement, the hand-holding you talked about, and some spirit of competition, and allowing them to track over many, each month, that has allowed the Aspirational Districts program to really provide a template for the type of engaged and inclusive economic development that I think can serve as a model across a wide variety of settings.
Okay. And let me quickly take this to Michael Green. Michael Green, your think tank actually coined that social progressive index. That's a multi-indicator index. And Niti Aayog has come up with this, this program, Aspirational Districts, which also involves your basically socio-economic indicators. Michael Green, how do you look at the implementation of it and your assessment of, because it's going to be a global view coming from you, Michael. Tell us more.
Well, I really want to echo something you said in your introduction, which is it's about people. And I think a very smart thing that's been done in this program has been to focus on those social environmental outcomes, those real lived experience measures that Scott was talking about. And by focusing on those, it really makes this a manageable program. And I want to emphasize that, this challenge of regional development is one that the whole world is looking at. My country, the UK, is looking at it. My Prime Minister talks about levelling up poorer regions. And I think there's a lot to be learnt from this experience in trying to do regional development in a much smarter way.
All right. Amit, challenges. Before we take this challenges question to Sir, challenges are many. There always will be. But then, according to you, let's face it, we are a country of a lot of disparity and a lot of divergences, economic disparity especially.
So I think we have to look at this in a very positive light. So when you really look at this program and you talk about three things, which is convergence, collaboration and competition, which has been the driver for this program. But there have been three fundamental pillars which have made this program, which create those challenges and which creates the opportunities. One of them is very clearly that you have to go beyond focusing on economic measures. So this is where you're saying that economic outcomes and social outcomes have to go hand in hand together. So this is what they've done. So what you're going to see is that, of course, the challenge is going to be that if you reach the frontier, or once you are actually about to achieve the targets, the progress will slow down for a certain district or whatever, because you are achieving the target. So what is going to happen is that these districts will certainly cross the barrier. They will actually become developed and things, and you'll have other districts which will have to do a catch-up. So that is where competition is all about. The second thing is, of course, there is a high prevalence of regional disparity that we actually exist, or that exists within the country. But I see this program as a very important pillar for reducing that disparity. If you really look at it, like India has talked about regional disparity, but it was only in the last 2 or 3 years that we have started creating a program which is targeting the regional disparity that actually exists. So you've actually had districts like, say, when you talk about Kupwara, look at the kind of achievement that the district has actually done. So today on agriculture-based development, it has achieved close to about 70% of the target that they were actually to achieve in 2022. So they're already at that level of achievement. So I'm 100% sure that they will achieve 100% in the coming year, and so on and so forth. And that is happening across the board. So this is where things are going to be. So the only challenge is that you'll have to find newer districts or districts which are actually supposedly developed. They will actually want to fight.
I'm sure they don't want to add more districts to 112 districts. In fact, aren't you looking at actually minimizing the number of districts?
No, the challenge is that these districts, because of great performance in education, health, and agriculture, productivity, infrastructure, should be actually able to lift India. Because if these districts are radically improved, which is what is happening on ground, then you are actually lifting vast segment of India's population above poverty line. That's number one. And you're establishing a model of good governance, that is real-time data, which is available online to the collectors. They are able to see their performance. They are going up or they are coming down. They are all competing with each other. One district goes up, other comes down, they compete, and at the end of the day, they are all competing. Young officers are competing. And therefore, there's a huge challenge for them to excel. And number three, that state governments and central governments are helping them to achieve success. And there's a vast number of non-governmental organizations who've joined hands, many of them. Piramal Trust, Tata Trust, many of them have joined.
And I think they're helping you in pro bono basis.
All on pro bono basis.
Fantastic.
On the ground level.
Lovely.
And they've done some enormous work. So many of these districts are actually left-wing extremist districts. Where there was no electricity, there was no roads. All that is suddenly transformed in the last 2 years. And there's some enormous programs which these collectors have come up with in terms of providing digital education, in terms of ensuring that there's better health standards and improving health outcomes, in switching back to millets with less of fertilizers, so productivity levels have gone up. Completely radical changes made by young officers on ground. And that has been really instrumental in driving change in India.
What has been that X factor? We're intrigued to know. Anshul and Varnali. Anshul, you first. What triggered this change? What triggered this change? Was it this thought of aspirational district program? Was it that vision Prime Minister keeps talking about, the New India Vision 2020, that there has to be a trigger point? Because at the end of the day, Anshul, you would agree, we are talking about the districts which have been immensely backward. They're not your developed top-line districts of the country. They are the ones, they're the backbenchers, not the frontliners. And I think there lies the challenge. Anshul.
Yeah, absolutely right. Actually, the theme of inclusive growth, as you rightly mentioned, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas, that lies at the core of the strategy that Kupwara adopted as part of the Aspirational District program. For example, providing grid connectivity to the border areas. We had around 40,000 people living in close proximity to the borders, but they only had a limited 3 hours of power supply every day, and that too through generator sets. So this is for the first time that almost after 7 decades of independence that we have connected them with grid connected electricity. So they are now at par with the rest of the country, and they are a part of the inclusive growth journey that India is now on. Similarly, as regards healthcare, we are the remotest district, so we didn't have tertiary care facilities available in the district. So there was a huge aspirations from the people of the region that they should have tertiary care facilities, which are, let's say, basic facilities in modern India. So we stepped up, ramped up our capacities in the district. Our CHC was upgraded to almost a district hospital-like facilities. The IPD capacity was enhanced from 50 to 150. We now have round-the-clock healthcare through heavy-duty gensets which are available. We have upgraded our blood bank so that people don't have to travel to the next referral care unit, which is almost 3 hours away from Kupwara. We have not only saved lives, there is a lot of money and cost savings that have gone into, let's say, that have been an outcome of the initiatives that we have undertaken. Similarly, for promotion of livelihoods, the Honorable Prime Minister has set a target of 2022 for doubling of the farmers' incomes. That also that was also, let's say, a focal point of our plan under the Aspirational District program, where we adopted a twin strategy of processing, packaging, and the marketing of the local produce, and secondly, shifting to high value and the high yield crops, so that the farmer income per unit of land, as the land holdings are decreasing by the day. So our focus was to improve the, let's say, yield per unit of land, and resultingly ensuring better incomes and doubling of the incomes for the farmers here in Kupwara.
And Varnali, the socio-economic impact that you see on ground, I'm sure you have a long list, to-do list, but in the last few years, how do you assess the impact of this program?
To my mind, the most important point in the whole exercise has been the monitoring and the measurement, because as the CEO sir famously says, what gets measured gets done, and most of our interventions have been in terms of bridging the gaps in our KPIs. And like Anshul has talked about, and you have started off saying about the Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, the inclusive growth, the inclusive development story, and Gwalpara is it is a story of heterogeneity. We have minorities, we have a host of tribal communities, and under the Aspirational District program, what we have tried to address is the disparities across gender, across various kinds of demographies. For example, when it comes to gender, we found that Gwalpara, being a very difficult district in terms of topography, in terms of terrain, the women self-help groups, the women producers, the small women business, the business women, they had difficulties in trying to sell their produce. So locally we developed Gwalmart, which is an in-house website where we focus, where we showcase the products and the produce of these women, and now they are getting a national market. So people across the country can take these products, they can order these products. We have a good price range, a good palette of products available, and this has also encouraged our women to innovate, and they get better pricing options, whereas previously they were at the mercy of middlemen. Likewise, we have ramped up our hospital facilities. We are providing basic health services to both clinics. If you look at the topography of Gwalpara, Brahmaputra being the main river, it is a braided river, and we have a number of riverine islands called sores, which are entirely unconnected with small hamlets residing there. So with the help of both clinics, we are providing immunization, we are providing antenatal care, we are providing postnatal care. I have already talked about Mission Vidya Shakti, through which we are making women literate, and also under plastic-free Gwalpara.
So basically there are comprehensive programs, and I'm sure this holds true for other 110 districts, because 2 DCs are here. It's a bigger plan. Professor Scott, coming to you, and Professor Scott, our Prime Minister, in most of his addresses, Honorable Prime Minister Amitabh has spoken about Team India. He has spoken about Aspirational District. I think this is also one of his pet projects. In a country like ours, when you have our Team India, when you have bureaucrats, when you have young officers like Anshul and Varnali, and there is a direct interface sort of a thing with the Prime Minister of the country, I think that is also very, very essential. The accountability, direct accountability, direct monitoring coming from center.
Yes, so one of, I think, the key features of the Aspirational Districts program is the combination of measurement, where the program has done a job of really focusing on how to measure and provide benchmarks for what the districts need to achieve.
Michael Green, if you could just continue with that point.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, how fantastic it is listening to Anshul and Varnali's comments and the enormous learning that's happened. And I think this is what we're going to see. Aspirational Districts is just in its first phase. In its second phase, using that common benchmark of data to be able to make comparison, we can learn from the successes and the failures and have an incredible impact, not just on the other 110 aspirational districts, but all the districts in India. There's this huge learning opportunity. So I'd say in terms of the aspirational districts and its potential, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay. Amitabh, you're smiling out there.
No, so Professor Michael Green is very, very correct. And what Professor Scott's done, they've done a very detailed analysis. They've done a detailed study of the performance of Aspirational District program.
Okay.
And from their study, and the detailed analysis based on data, again, because the key to this whole program was that we must get real-time data across these 49 indicators and constantly on a monthly basis, minute to minute basis, find out whether the districts, how they are performing on the indicators, whether they're going up and down. And all that analysis has been examined by Professor Scott Stern and Professor Michael Green, and they have said that this is a remarkable program in many ways, because one, it induces a great sense of competition. Without competition, it's very difficult to transform. Number two, this is one program where we are connecting to the field and the states and the center. Thirdly, we are not talking about GDP, we are talking about transformation in learning outcomes, health outcomes, without which, and nutrition, without which you can't transform India and you can't have a growth for 3-decade period. So this was the real transformation on ground.
Transformation on ground, Amit, the indicators that sir is talking about: health, nutrition, education, then agriculture, water resources, financial inclusion, skill development, basic infrastructure, and coming to the ranking of districts and the purpose of Delta ranking. This is the research paper that I'm reading is from Niti Aayog itself. This is something which is, infused this sense of competition. Having said that, you have we've identified 112 districts, and I think the aim is also that these numbers should minimize. This is not possible without consolidating people's support, basically turning this into a mass movement.
Without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a mass movement in itself. This is where I think the mass movement started with one single idea, and that was that go beyond GDP as a measure. Let us try to look at what I call social objectives as a measure that we have to look at. This is where issues of financial inclusion, education and everything was actually looked at. And if I really look at an aggregated number, there is a fantastic number that actually comes through. If you really look at severe acute malnutrition in India, and if you really look at that number across aspirational districts, the positive impact is close to about 1.43 lakh crores. That has actually happened because of this singular program. And that is just, I'm just talking about a very simple thing of 112 districts here. So the power of this program is immense. So it is already a mass movement. Look at, say, something like, say, financial inclusion. What it has done to the lives of women is absolutely exceptional. In fact, the kind of stories that when we were looking at doing the study and we were meeting people, the stories that we were looking at was tremendous. The empowerment of women, and that has actually happened. So these districts have also seen something like the tremendous upliftment of women in the country. And nobody has ever talked about it. But this is such a powerful program that has happened that we need to really appreciate and see how this can get progressed across the board. Today, I think that this is a program which is a template for other districts as well that need to actually look at how to learn from.
You mean other aspirational districts?
No, I'm saying
or
other
the healthy districts?
The healthy districts. This has become a template for how to do things. In fact, you are suddenly in a backward situation and you create a situation.
That's a very interesting point.
No, so that's, more than this, one of the great things that's happened is that many collectors actually have started monitoring their blocks. They've used the same dashboard to go down and start monitoring the performance of their blocks. And I think what Professor Scott Stern said, and he'll be the right person to comment on this, that how, competition spurns change, and I think it's best to hear from him.
Professor Scott, well, a point that Amitabh Kant raised in our studio, that the point of competition that triggers transformation, and I think this was something this is something which has triggered that much needed change in Indian context. Your thoughts, Professor Scott?
Yes, the ability to focus on accountability. And one of that is to identify and provide incentives and reward and congratulations for those districts that are performing at the top, that are moving those metrics in the most meaningful manner. And then that also identifies why those laggard districts need to, identify what the root cause of the problem is, identify where resources or individuals need to change, and then also have those districts move forward. As I think Dr. Kapoor said, this is going to be at the heart of moving each of the aspirational districts towards the frontier and ultimately provide a new standard for economic well-being as well as social progress.
Okay, Michael Green, just to add to that, this new template, but the challenge is because we're talking about underdeveloped districts, and we're looking at improving these socio-economic indicators as well.
Well, this is right, but I think this is one of the things is that we can't spread economic growth evenly across a territory, but it's a much more meaningful and practical tool to spread social progress, measured in terms of education and health and gender equity, etc. And also we know is that improvements in that social progress and human development are going to drive future economic success. I mean, Amit's example around severe acute malnutrition, that's going to have huge benefits in terms of human life, but that's going to have massive economic spin-off effects in the future. And I just want to echo Amitabh's point about if you're going to accelerate progress in India, you've got to start with those at the bottom. And that's going to have a huge sort of potential of.
Okay, I think he was talking about, Anshul, if you could hear him, just to add to that, what is really better, the bottom to top approach or from top to bottom approach, Anshul? And especially when you come from a conflict-ridden state, where you're joining us from Kupwara, you know, you have very different set of challenges to deal with on daily basis. Anshul?
Yeah, definitely. J&K itself comes in with a unique set of challenges, obviously, that you rightly mentioned. And apart from the locational factors, apart from the weather extremities that we face here, there are a lot of geopolitical issues involved. There are a lot of infiltration, a lot of law and order issues involved. So definitely involvement of the local people and a bottom-up planning approach, involvement of all these stakeholders becomes critical to success of any development program that you conceive here. Kupwara as a district has almost 400 panchayats which are actively involved in the planning process here. And the approach that we have adopted as part of the Aspirational District program has been a consultative strategy where plans are formulated at the panchayat level, taking into account the local scenarios in a particular panchayat or in a particular area.
Okay.
And then the plans are consolidated at the block and the district level, and then we go about it for the implementation. And similarly, course correction also takes place with the improvement of with the involvement of all the stakeholders, be it the administration, be it the civil society, obviously a lot of NGOs and the local media as well. So a consultative process has been at the core of the Aspirational District program here in Kupwara, so that we could weather out all the challenges that we face specifically in Kashmir.
Okay, and Varnali, your thoughts? The grassroots level involvement and the percolation of these benefits at the grassroots level, and I think that's your main target, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And if we look at a top-down or bottom-up approach, I would say that in a state like Assam, in a district like Gwalpara, it is a mix of both, because we do need the support of the various communities. Community-based organizations are very strong in Assam and in Gwalpara. And also top-down, also we need to see, we need to look at the various policies in terms of, because Gwalpara is such a district that one-size-fits-all kind of a strategy doesn't work. So for each target group, for each demography, for each tribe, for each minority section, we need a different kind of an approach. We need a different kind of a strategy, which is why Gwalpara becomes a very difficult district, which is why Assam is a difficult state in that way, because every policy of the government in terms of implementation, we have to look at various schemes. We have hilly areas in Gwalpara, we have riverine areas, we have forested tracts. So every area, every geography, every demography, we have to come out with a very different approach, and at the same time we have to keep people on board, and each tribe, each minority section has a very different approach to things. So for each tribe or each group, we need to sit across the table and talk with them that this is what the government wants, and what how do you get on board in regard of this.
Okay, we sit across the table and talk to them. Are we doing that?
Talking to various stakeholders and people?
Yes.
Definitely it is happening. In fact, when we talk to people on the ground, I think the level of engagement that these programs have seen is tremendous. And at all levels of stakeholders, whether it is the citizen, whether it's the officer, whether it's the corporations, or whether it is actually the NGOs, the level of engagement is absolutely tremendous. This program couldn't have been successful if this engagement was not there. I think the grassroots understanding of what the challenges are and how to surmount them is the core idea of this program itself. So it was about identifying the challenges and really fulfilling or overcoming those challenges. So that is what has actually happened. So a very powerful idea of how things have to be done has been taken care of.
Before I come to Amitabh sir, let's quickly take final comments from Professor Stern and Michael Green. Michael Green, coming to you first. Michael Green, just to wrap up the discussion, Michael Green, I'm going to quickly ask you this very simple question. 5 quick fire points. What more needs to be done in this? I'm sure there's a lot to be done, but from a global perspective, what more needs to be done to make Aspirational District program a super duper success?
I think it's one very simple point. Learn, learn, learn. The successes are already out there. They're happening on the ground, just as our 2 district collectors have talked about.
So this learn is for the center or lessons for the state?
No, I think to get the states and districts sharing this knowledge with each other. There's huge knowledge currently locked away, but now what this framework gives you is a way of sharing those lessons concretely. And I say this again, successes and failures. We've got to be able to talk about failure as well as success if we're going to squeeze out the maximum amount of learning out of this program. If you can do that, that's really going to drive success going forward.
You've put it so beautifully. If you could squeeze out of it, learn. And let me take this to Professor Scott. Professor Scott, learn, and what else? Adding to that list.
And so I would just build on what Michael said. You need to focus on what works in advancing inclusive growth and social progress by committing to a governance model that brings together both the center as well as the stakeholders and the people on the ground. By focusing on measurement, by focusing on accountability, you're able to not simply try a lot of experiments, but meaningfully accumulate that learning to drive the impact of social progress for all of India.
Accountability, yes. And Varnali, your thoughts, and in fact, before I wrap it up, congratulations from all of us here, and for the great work that you've done, and we're showing that work to the viewers of DD Dialogue. We're playing out those videos, Varnali. Your wish list and your message for not Niti Aayog, but your message for the Prime Minister, for the Team India, and of course you're part of that Team India.
I think it boils down to the 3 C's: convergence, collaboration, and of course competition, some amount of healthy competition. I would say the 3 C's sum it up, and that is the message of the Aspirational Districts program, and that would be my message to Team India and to all of us present here.
Okay, Anshul.
Yeah, for me, I would just say that I would like to express my gratitude actually to Niti Aayog and the Honorable Prime Minister for the conception of this program, because personally I and the district administration have learnt a lot over the journey of the past 2 years, and the learning has surely improved our commitment and our performance under the Aspirational District program. And I surely believe that we can obviously customize and improve upon these learnings and taking the people on board, so that a sense of community ownership comes in and the initiatives are sustainable by themselves in the longer run and are not dependent upon personalities.
Yes, sense of ownership. That's very important. Amit?
No, so I would just like to pull up from what Scott and Michael have said. In fact, learn. But then there is something very interesting that Michael Green has actually said. And he says that there has to be something like a celebration of best failure. So create something like a best failure prize. So something what Michael has written. We learn most from our mistakes. We hear this so often from our parents and teachers. And this tells we tell this to our children, particularly when they need encouragement. Yet this lesson is all too rarely applied to policy making. Successes are championed and shared. Failures are too quickly brushed beneath the carpet, and critical lessons are lost as a result. So there has to be a failure prize. We should also celebrate failure. And I think that is where we are actually going to be talking about this program, which is going to be fundamentally a beautiful thing in the future.
Absolutely. Final word?
Well, I want to just compliment the young collectors who are there in the field and their team, because they have done all this spectacular work. We put a conceptual framework, but the execution has all been done by them.
The architect of it is very interesting, Amitabhji.
Yeah, because the architecture is all about constant measurement. It's all about real-time data. It's all about putting it right in front of you and then rewarding those who are doing well. And therefore, this has thrown up a lot of great good practices. A lot of innovation has come
New
up.
governance templates.
Yeah, massive number in terms of education, in terms of health, districts using digital education to improve learning outcomes, nutrition, vast number of, and just learning, as Professor Scott Stern said, just learning from each other. And we put out these best practices all the time. Kupwara has enhanced agriculture productivity enormously. Better apple growing, etc. So actually, if you go to Kupwara now, their productivity has grown enormously. It has led to huge earnings. Now, all these are practices which we are passing on to other districts. And actually, aspirational districts are throwing up good practices which the progressive districts are learning from.
Wow.
Yeah.
On that note, I think it's a very loaded statement that has come from the man himself, CEO Niti Aayog, that the progressive districts have so many lessons to actually learn from these aspirational districts. And these are your districts, the success stories that are actually, helping in that, pitching in the transforming India vision, transforming India vision. And on that note, let's quickly thank all of our Professor Scott Stern from Stanford for joining us. Thank you so much, Scott Stern, for joining us. I'm going to quickly thank Michael Green from joining us from London. Michael Green, thank you so much. Varnali Deka, DC Golpara, for joining us. Thank you so much, Varnali, and sharing your practices, your thoughts, your the videos that you send us. Thank you so much. Also, Anshul Garg, DC Kupwara, Jammu Kashmir, for joining us on DD Dialogue. And thank you so much, Amit Kapoor, Chairman, Institute for Competitiveness, for joining us. And of course, Amitabh Kant, CEO Niti Aayog, for joining us. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and Sabka Vishwas is basically the cornerstone. Undoubtedly, not theoretically, but actually in practicality, because we have heard the DCs themselves, and I'm sure this is just a tip of an iceberg, viewers. Remember, there are other aspirational districts, at least 110 more of them. So if this is tip of an iceberg, you can imagine this is a story which is continuously growing. Thank you so much for joining us on DD Dialogue on this edition, on the special one on Aspirational District Transforming India. Thanks. Namaskar.
कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म को मैंने कॉम्पिटिटिव कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म की दिशा में ले जाने का प्रयास किया है। भारत सरकार के केंद्रीय दफ्तर के सैकड़ों मुलाजिमों का हिंदुस्तान के दूर दराज के इलाकों में 2-2 दिन ट्रैवलिंग करना पड़ता है। जा रहे हैं कि बेटर टुमारो की तो गारंटी है। भारत के ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट पैरामीटर्स को सुधारने के लिए सबसे बड़ा पुश इन्हीं 112 एस्पिरेशनल डिस्ट्रिक्ट से मिलने वाला है। जब यहां के लोगों का भविष्य सुधरेगा तो भारत का भविष्य अपनों आप सुधरना शुरू दिखेगा।